Docker is the platform designed to make it easier to create, deploy, and run applications by using containers. A container is a lightweight, isolated standalone executable package that includes everything needed to run a piece of software. Docker emphasizes on isolation so that you can run many different applications without affecting each other. Docker is smart. Be like Docker.
Yeah.
What's amazing about this technology is that it provides consistency across different environments by ensuring that your software runs the same way regardless of where it is being deployed. No more
But it works in my local machine
excuses. My viewers better not be saying this ever. Docker provides tools for building containers, storing them into repositories, and orchestrating the deployment and scaling of containers across clusters of machines. So why are containers such a big deal? In the early days of software development, there was this recurring problem of shipping software between machines as the complexity of software grew. There were no reliable and automated ways to deploy software from one environment to another while ensuring that it would behave consistently. Enter the creator of Docker, who had this eureka moment while looking at the shipping industry. Picture this: software applications are like cargo, think coffee beans and grand pianos, while the ship is the infrastructure that deploys these applications. But how would you arrange your cargo to fit perfectly onto the ship without ending up with a coffee-stained piano?
Brother,
In the 1950s, the shipping industry had its own revolution with the introduction of standard shipping containers. You see, these containers provided a consistent format for transporting goods, allowing for separation of concerns and automated handling. The infrastructure don't need to know the content of the containers, it just needed to deliver them from one place to the other. From this inspiration, Docker introduced both its own efficient standard containers format for developers, which provided simple tools for packaging applications, and to offer ops team a method to deploy and manage these containers reliably across different environments. You may be asking yourself, why use containers when we already had something like virtual machines? VM uses virtualization that occurs at the hardware level by creating an abstraction layer over the physical computer hardware and dividing its resources into multiple virtual machines. This is achieved through a software called hypervisor, which allocates the underlying components such as processors, memory, and an operating system to each virtual machine. In comparison, a container is a lightweight form of virtualization that occurs at the operating system level. All containers are processes that share the same operating system and hardware, but they have separate namespaces, networking, file systems, and users for isolation. We'll be going over these in a bit. Since containers share the same OS kernel, they have lower overhead and faster startup compared to VMs, which require a full OS for each instance. So if you remember anything from what I just said, think of it this way: a VM provides isolation of a whole machine, while a container provides isolation of a process. Before we attempt to build our Docker container from scratch, let's first understand how Docker works. Docker's architecture consists of a client-server model where Docker clients interact with the Docker daemon using REST API. The Docker client is what we users primarily interact with. When we use commands such as docker build, docker pull, and docker run, the client would communicate with the daemon to execute these commands on our behalf. The Docker daemon is a background service that listens to API requests from the Docker client, build images from Dockerfiles, and handle the life cycle of containers. In Docker, there are two fundamental components: images and containers. A Docker image contains instructions for creating a Docker container. Typically, images are based on existing ones, but can be customized to include additional software or configurations. Dockerfiles, which define the steps to construct an image, is used to facilitate this process. We'll talk about Dockerfiles shortly. Images are constructed in layers, with Docker optimizing rebuilds by only updating change layers, resulting in lightweight and efficient images. A container is a runnable instance of the image, like Postgres and Redis. Containers can be connected to networks and have storage attached. By default, containers are relatively isolated from both other containers and the host machine. A registry is a storage and distribution system for Docker images. Public registries like Docker Hub and private registries are used to store and share images. A Dockerfile is a script containing a series of instructions on how to build a Docker image. This image can then be used to create containers that run the application in an isolated environment. Suppose you're developing a simple Express app consisting of a simple server.js file and a package.json, and we want to containerize it. First, we create the Dockerfile in the root directory of your Express app project. Next, we define the base image that provides the necessary runtime environment for our application. In this scenario, we'll be using Node 18 or whatever version is needed for the application. This is done using the from command followed by the runtime version. Setting the working directory is the next step. The work there instruction sets a directory inside the container where all subsequent instructions will be executed. Here, we set it to /app. We then copy all the files from our project to the container using the copy command. This command ensures that everything in our current directory gets included in the container. To exclude any unnecessary files such as node module or .git, we can create a .docker ignore file. This helps keeps our container lightweight and free of clutter. Next, we install all the dependencies listed in the package.json inside our container using the run command. To ensure that our app is accessible, we need our container to listen on a specific port at runtime. Here we expose port 3000. Finally, we can specify the command to run our application. This is done using the cmd instruction. With our Dockerfile defined, we can create our Docker image using the docker build command, followed by -t my express app, which will essentially tag the image with our specified name, and of course the period specifying the directory in which Docker will look for our build contacts. Once the build is completed, Docker will generate an ID and a tag for your new image. You can use the Docker images to see all the available images. Here you can see my express app, which was created. To actually create the Docker container, we can use the docker run command followed by the -p 3000:3000 and your image name. This right here maps port 3000 on the host to port 3000 on the container. This essentially allows us to be able to access our container through port 3000 from our host machine. To test this, we can use curl to hit port 3000 and see if we can get something back. And there you have it. This is really just an introductory to Docker. There are so many good tutorials out there that if you would like to learn more about Docker, I really encourage you to give it a try. So that was essentially Docker in a nutshell. Because Docker in a nutshell, get it? Nah, never mind. But what I'm more curious about is how would you go about building Docker containers from scratch? Docker containers fundamentally rely on Linux kernel. We'll be mainly looking at namespaces and cgroups. So what exactly are these? Namespaces are a Linux kernel feature that provides isolation for system resources. They create separate environments for processes, allowing them to have their own view of the system resources like process ID, network interface, and file system. This isolation makes each container appears as if it's running on a separate machine, giving each container its own little bubble of existence. Control groups or cgroups are another Linux kernel feature that limits the resource usage, such as CPU and memory, of a collection of processes. This prevents any single container from monopolizing system resources and ensuring fair resource distribution among all containers. Docker uses a special kind of file system called layer file system to manage images. Imagine each layer as a separate level where we keep track of changes to file. These layers build on top of each other, creating a stack of changes. Using our previous example of a Dockerfile, the first layer would be the base image like Node 18. The next layer would be installing the dependencies and so on and so on. By breaking changes into layers, Dockers can cache and reuse layers. If a layer hasn't changed, Docker uses the cached version instead of rebuilding it. If there was a change, only that specific layer needs updating. This not only speeds up the build process, but also reduces the storage and bandwidth required. This approach also allows layers to be reused between different images. For example, if you have another Express app that happens to run on Node 18 as well, it can use the same base image as the first project. Now that we understand what namespaces and cgroups are, let's walk through how to build containers from scratch and see how we can parse something like a Dockerfile. So even though I talked about containers, I actually ended up installing a virtual machine with Ubuntu to be able to access Linux specific containers features. I will leave the instructions in my GitHub page for you to check it out. When you first enter the program, it enters the run function, which sets up the namespaces for PLID and mount. It then spawns a new process that will run our command in the new namespaces, completely separate from our host machine. The child function, which executes our program, sets up the cgroups and host names. To add another layer of isolation, I actually have a copy of the Ubuntu file system under /dockerfs that our container will use. This is done using chroot, ensuring that the changes in our containers won't affect the file system in our host. The cgroups are configured under /sys/fs cgroups. Here we can specify various limits such as CPU, memory, and PLID. In our case, we have specified the memory limit to 100 megabytes. To actually enforce this limit though, we have to add the current child process ID to a file called cgroups.procs. This will essentially ensure that our child process will never exceed 100 megabytes in memory usage. So to check that, I have the bottom terminal here, which is our host machine. I have gone under to my Docker cgroup, and if we check something like memory.max, you can see that this is less than 100 megabytes. Why don't we give this a try? So to test this, I'm actually just going to comment out the Dockerfile parser. And what I will do is leave the child process running for a period of time so that we can actually perform the stress test. Here you can see that our child process is running. We have hooked up with the C group, we have specified the memory max, and we have added the child process to our C group approx. To perform our stress test, there is a stress command line tool available in Linux to test the performance of our process. Here I will attempt to make our stress test go over 550 megabytes and run this for 30 seconds. While it's running, we can also see the current memory usage of our process right now. Here you can see that it will never exceed 100 megabytes. These are in bytes, which is exactly what we want to do. Next, why don't we just parse something like a Dockerfile? Here I have a very basic function that essentially just goes through each Dockerfile and depending on what the command is to perform a specific operation. So for example, our from command, as you remember, that was for our base image. Our function will essentially see that it is a from command and perform to install our Node.js. When I was working on this function right here, it was having some trouble connecting to the internet. So what I ended up doing was copying the resolve.conf file from our host into our container. Once that was done, our container was able to actually access the internet to install our Node.js. And then all the other commands are essentially just copying file over and then running and performing our commands. So why don't we give this a try? Here you can see that it was going through each of our Dockerfile, executing instruction node 18, and then it was setting up node 18. I also have a check to make sure that if Node.js is already installed in the container to not install again, just to save bandwidth. And then you can see that it was changing the directory, and then it was executing npm install, and finally it was able to start our application. And it's supposed to be running on localhost port 3000. Similar to previous example, we can also use curl to try to hit this and see what we get back on our host machine. And you can see we were able to connect to our container, which is completely separate from our host machine, and we actually got a result back. Yeah, there you have it, a fully working container. I know this is very high level, but if you would like to give it a try yourself and mess around with these code, please feel free. I will attach the GitHub link in the description below. And yeah, give it a try yourself. I'll add the description to set up the VMs to be able to run everything from scratch. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I wanted to give this a new video format a try. If there's any interest, then I'm thinking of doing something very similar, maybe building your own front-end framework from scratch. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.